Hi guys, how's it going? I've Archie with me again today, and we are going to talk about escapism. Yes, escapism. And escapism is a coping mechanism that is generally caused by childhood trauma. And childhood trauma, when untreated, usually slowly destroys our lives. And when untreated, we tend to escape reality quite often. And we escape reality through means of social media, substance abuse, just procrastination in general, and subconsciously but somewhat consciously leading our lives into a dark pit that is going to give us no pleasure whatsoever. Some ways of escapism, you could say, bring you pleasure, but this pleasure is very, very short-lived. It's a pleasure that doesn't last a long time. When it's over, you usually feel worse after engaging in escapism. And in this video, I'll try and explain escapism very slowly. I will try and explain it in a way that doesn't overload your brain. And I don't mean to be rude or anything like that, but I don't want to overload your brain with excessive information, because we tend to just forget very easily on what we hear and what we learn. So the best way of retaining information is actually to gradually understand the true relevance, and by you relating to my story of my ways of escapism and how I struggled with it in the past and even in the present. So I suppose we can get into the whole story about escapism and how you can escape escapism initially. So escapism, as we said before, it stems from childhood trauma most of the time. And that childhood trauma can be very broad. It can be abandonment, where one of your parents leave in a ways of, maybe they pass away, maybe your dad left because he struggled with substance abuse himself, maybe your parent had a case of childhood trauma that was untreated themselves, and then they abandoned the relationship and initially abandoned you. Sometimes childhood trauma is because of abuse, internal family abuse. Sometimes it can be bullying in school when you're very young, and this plays a big role in your future life, where you actually don't trust people and you have severe trust issues in general. Then we have emotional deprivation, where your parents again have suffered with childhood trauma in their past, and they don't know how to love because they never received love. So maybe you lack some kind of emotional support from your parents, and just in general from your family and your friends. So you feel like there's a lack of something in life, and generally that leads to escapism. Then you have incompetence, which is actually when your parents, or again, I hate repeating myself, I keep saying your parents, but it's when they kind of just tell you that you're not good enough. When they tell you that you will never amount to anything, they try and tell you that you are basically going to end up just like your parents, that you won't surpass their abilities, or let's say you're working really hard in school and you're putting in all of your energy, and when it comes to the day of your graduation, they tell you, well, everyone has to graduate. It's nothing special. They don't give you any kind of praise. They don't tell you the simple word of well done, or just say, I'm proud of you. So this kind of ties in very, very, very well with incompetence, and in your future lives, you may struggle with just relying on people too much. Maybe you will find a partner that you will rely on all the time, and you will be unable to do anything by yourself without any kind of approval from them. You'll always seek approval. You'll always seek some kind of, is this good enough? Like people pleasing. So this all ties together so well, and initially it ruins your life slowly. So it builds a lot of insecurity in you, and initially you live your life by escaping from reality. And most of you probably watching this have experienced one of these things that I've just talked about childhood trauma. Some childhood trauma is very severe, where you have been abused severely, and that leads to very severe consequences. And escapism is very tough to treat at that point, but everything is possible in this life. You have to be optimistic, and it's easy to say, but with hard work and persistence, everything is possible. So escapism, what kind of escapism are we looking at? So in general, escapism can be as simple as playing video games for more than you need, for more than 5 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours a day. You're escaping reality by initially just playing video games. You're playing video games online. You're trying to somewhat build a life outside of your actual reality. You're trying to succeed somewhere else where people don't know who you are, where people are just seeing you as someone that is, completely normal, unaffected by childhood trauma. So you escape in video games. Then you can escape in social media, which is very prevalent in today's world. So social media is a big one today. And in general, media consumption. And it can be anything from news to scrolling Facebook. It can be anything to watching TV too much, or your favorite show on Netflix, and just escaping your reality through other people's lives. And maybe you're a stalker and you like to stalk other people's lives, and that includes celebrities too. And you take much more pleasure in their lives than your own. Then I have brain fog, can't think for a moment. But anyways, we talked about all these ways you can escape, and I'm pretty sure you can come up with so many more ways you can escape, like substance abuse and like PORN abuse, and many more things that you can think of. And you probably have a way of escaping reality yourself, and you can comment down below, what is your way of escaping reality? It'll be nice to know if you are confident enough in admitting that you have escapism. I'll talk about my escapism for just a quick brief moment, because I feel like you can relate to my story maybe. In my childhood, I didn't receive any major childhood trauma. It was pretty much a normal upbringing, and I got addicted to video games very early, at the age of like 7. And I played video games for an abnormal amount of time. I played video games for sometimes 10 hours a day, sometimes even more, sometimes 12 hours a day, as a 8-year-old kid. And that was my means of escapism, escaping reality. Because I was insecure as a kid, and there are many things that bothered me. I can get into those things, but it will take a very long time to explain. And yeah, there were some internal family things that caused my escapism, and in general that was pretty much my only way of escaping reality, up until the point where YouTube became popular and all the other kinds of social media. I was never really addicted to Instagram, never really scrolled TikTok. TikTok is only recent, but YouTube consumption was a problem for me as well. I escaped through other people's lives. Never really binged movies or shows, like TV series. Never really watched many of those. But there were times where I did get hooked on a TV series and completely abandoned my own life just to watch a TV series, which is not a great thing to do because obviously, well, we'll talk about this later in around a minute or so. But yeah, pretty much video game addiction, and then later on YouTube was my way of escaping. And I would sometimes watch YouTube for over 10 hours a day, and sometimes it would be good content that would actually be beneficial to me, but most of the times it was content about video games. So it's pretty much me just looking at other people's lives and not living my own. And I really regret the time where I was addicted to video games because, yeah, I wasted a lot of time on them. I wasted so much time that could have been put into a skill that could have been used for something very useful. Could be making a lot of money if I put in like over 5,000 or even more hours that I put into a video game that I could put into a skill. So yeah, and nowadays my way of escapism is mostly healthy. I choose good habits over bad habits consciously, but then sometimes subconsciously I do engage in some sort of escapism, like maybe scrolling Instagram reels a little too long and watching those videos and then feeling awful because I've just wasted so much time. And you don't feel great after watching all this content because it really amounts to nothing. You really learn nothing from it, and you rarely remember anything that you watched anyways. So let's talk about how we can escape escapism. So the first way of escaping escapism, and the first real goal, is to acknowledge your problem. You have to really go deep in the past and think about your childhood, especially from the ages of 4 to around 8 or 9. Really, really think about how your childhood was formed. Think about how your parents treated you. Think about every event that happened that may cause you to cry or to feel different, to feel bad. You have to really, really think about your early years, because most of this childhood trauma that then causes escapism is built through your early childhood, which is from 4 years of age until 9, sometimes later. It depends. It really depends on your circumstances, but it can be up until your teenage years. And you really have to delve in deep into your past and try and remember what may have caused your trauma. And obviously trauma is sometimes buried very, very deep, because you try and hide from it. You try and run away from it in this sense of escapism. You try and escape your trauma. So you really bury it down deep. But the first, before you do anything, before you try any sort of methods, before you meditate on anything, you have to really know what has caused this escapism that you're engaging in now. You have to really, really think about it. So acknowledge your problem. Identify the root of what is causing this. And this is the hardest part of the whole journey. This is going to be the most difficult part of your whole transformation into escaping escapism. So once you do that, once you actually identify the root of your problem, then you can move on. So what do we move on to? We move on to setting a purpose and getting a sense of direction after we acknowledge our problem. So we want to break our bad habits now, because now we understand why we are doing those bad habits, those escapism habits. And we want to now replace those bad habits with good habits. So you can probably think of many good habits that you could be doing instead of those bad habits. I don't have to tell you all of them, but some of them include exercise. Some of them include self-development, like reading, going outside, building connections, working on your business, etc. You can be doing many, many things. And mindfulness and meditation comes into the same category. Practice yoga, practice meditation, do some kind of breath work, This will all help you to somehow fortify your good habits. It will help you to build that resilience and that discipline that you really need. So you take your bad habits that you now know why you do those bad habits. Now you know what is causing those bad habits. And you try and change them into good habits. Directly replace them. And you can't be like, okay, I have 20 bad habits. I'm going to not do any of those tomorrow. I'm sorry, but it's not going to work that way. It's just not. You can't be like, I have 20 bad habits and tomorrow I'll have none. No, tomorrow you might have 19 bad habits, or maybe 19 and a half. This whole transformation is going to take you a lot of time. And the reality is that maybe you'll need to put in 5 years of work to relieve you of 90% of your childhood trauma. And you'll still be left with 10% after 5 years. And that's if you put in a lot of hard work. That's how childhood trauma works. That's how much it affects you. So, yeah, I don't mean to be discouraging in any way. I don't mean to be somewhat a party pooper, but you do need to put in a lot of work. But the good news is that after you acknowledge your problem and you start to break down the bad habits and build good habits, you're 50% there. That's the good news. Now that you know why you're acting this way and why you're escaping reality and binge watching shows, binge fuck, I can't say it, binge eating food. Now you know the reason of why you're doing it. You know, oh, these things has happened in my childhood, and that's why I eat all this junk food and I can't stop. That's why I eat up until the point that I feel sick. That's why I watch 10 hours of TV and I have no motivation to do anything else in my life. That's why you do these things. So now you have 50%, like you're 50. So if this is like a loading bar, like you're 50% there, and you have another 50% to go. And that 50% will take you more than 5 years. So initially the first 50% takes you like maybe a couple of months. And then later on it's a difficult road. But again, this is not discouragement. This is motivation. Because 50% that's left is going to be enjoyable. Yes, it's difficult or hard or whatever you want to call it. But these words don't really exist. They only exist in a dictionary. If you are going to say that something is hard or difficult, it is. It is going to be that way. But if you say enjoyable or say fun, just to replace those two words, hard and difficult, then you might want to do those things a bit more. And you actually might enjoy doing those things a bit more. So now that you're breaking your bad habits and stopping them completely and building good habits like going to the gym sometimes, you know, taking regular walks, spending time with family and friends, you're going to be much happier. And these things are, trust me when I say this, the bad habits that you have make you feel like complete garbage. And the good habits that you're going to do are going to make you feel good. Release dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, all the good chemicals, the neurochemicals that you want and need. So it's a small step, and you're going to take baby steps and completely destroy your bad habits. And it will take time, you know, from going 20 bad habits to 19, 18, 17, 16, day by day you're going to improve and you're going to break those bad habits. And eventually you'll be left with one or two bad habits that are really difficult to break, but eventually you'll still manage, because the good habits are going to make you feel much better. They're going to make you feel so much better. The bad habits, they're called bad habits because they make you feel bad. They make you feel like you're amounting to nothing in your life, that you're going nowhere, no sense of direction. Feel like you're wasting your life. The good habits are going to make you even more motivated to live. You'll actually have an enjoyable time on this earth. We don't have many years here. All we're born with is time. You're going to actually enjoy the rest of your time here if you're going to break those bad habits. But first you have to know what is the root of your problem. Why are you escaping? This is going to be the most necessary thing in your journey. Again, one thing I forgot to mention is journaling. That's going to help you tremendously in ways to figure out why you are escaping reality. Journal about everything. Your journal is not going to judge you. If you have no people in your life that you can trust right now, your journal you can trust. Jot down things that are very, very, very personal to you in that journal and hide it. Hide it somewhere where no one can find it. If you have people in your house that can find it and read it and somehow use it against you and, sometimes manipulate you into things. If you have that kind of bad relationship with someone. Use a journal, hide it. Your journal is a thing that you can put in anything that you want. Write down physically with a pen. Don't use a keyboard. Don't do it on your phone. Don't journal on those things. It has to be a pen and paper. Journal down everything that you feel, all of your emotions. Try and dig deep into the past and really figure out what is the root of your problems. This way, you're going to have an easier time figuring it out. This is my experience with it. This is generally my experience. One other thing that I found very useful to figuring out what childhood trauma I had was meditation. True meditation and actually clearing my mind out of all the infiltrations that come into my mind, all of the information and everything that's unnecessary. Meditation, I have a video down on my channel. Scroll down, go to my channel, scroll down, you'll see easy way to meditate in simple English or something like that. Click on that video and watch it. I explain how you can meditate. So meditation has helped me to clear my mind, and that gives me room then to think what issues I have. You can't have any new things coming into your brain if your brain is full. You understand? If your brain is full, how can more information come in about your childhood trauma? Obviously, it's in your brain somewhere, but you need to find it. You need to empty out some things, And sometimes those things will surface when you're meditating. Sometimes they will just come to the surface and you'll be like, whoa, how did that thought come into my brain? Sometimes you're even doing just a general task and a certain thing comes into your brain and you're like, whoa, like a memory from the past or something. Just remember like, oh, wow, okay. And it's like, sometimes it's a cringy memory of like you doing something stupid in school, or sometimes it's like some wholesome thing. But that's how when your mind is free from all these distractions, the social media, all this bull, you just lie down, meditate, some things will surface and you'll be like, oh fuck, sometimes it won't be pleasant, because childhood trauma is definitely not pleasant. When it surfaces, you might cry, you might want to speak to someone that you trust. Those are the ways that I found most beneficial in finding that childhood trauma. Now the last part, the complete last part. This video is already 23 minutes long, but this is the last part, I promise. When you have done all of those things, and maybe when you're in the middle of it, maybe when you're like, you acknowledged it, after that 50%, try and find someone to talk to. Try and find someone you trust who is not going to exploit you for your past, or someone who's not going to use these things against you. Someone who's not going to break your trust. Try and find someone, preferably a family member, because they're just able to help you a bit more. Preferably a family member. If not a family member, maybe your partner will listen, if you have a partner. If not that, maybe a friend. Maybe a friend will listen. Because friends can do a lot more than you think. You can talk to your friends about these things and they can give you some insight that you haven't thought about. And try and not make that mistake that you shut yourself in with your acknowledgement now, that you found your root of the problem. You found your childhood trauma, this deep down childhood trauma that just surfaced. Don't keep it in. You have to share it with someone. You have to even just start talking about it, just little by little. Start talking to your friends about it, family, whoever you trust. It can be anyone. And yes, this is a bit difficult to do if you have trust issues from childhood trauma. But I can assure you that there are people in this world that you can trust. There are. And there's many of them. There's a lot of people that you can trust. So, actually, you know what? If anything, message me. Leave a comment, say, where can I contact you? Talk to me. Sometimes I have time, I'll talk to you about your issues if you want. I'm not going to tell anyone, I promise. And if that's just going to help you, which it is, because talking to someone that you trust always helps. And if you've watched some of my videos, and many of them maybe you've watched every single one of my videos, and you see like, oh, this is a trustworthy guy, message me and we'll go forward with it. So talk to someone. And the last step that you can consider before anything else is speak to a therapist. Find a therapist on like a website like maybe BetterHelp, and maybe online like BetterHelp will be better for you. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but speak to a therapist online and see if you can somehow manage to trust them and to speak with them, because there's complete confidentiality between like patient and the doctor, so they can't discuss things out of and it's normal. Again, childhood trauma is normal. It's something that has happened to every single person on this planet. So it's not like your therapist is going to be speaking to everyone like, oh, look at this guy, he has been abused as a child. They hear this every single day, 100 times a day. So you can trust them. So speak to a therapist, or find a therapist in your local area and speak to them before you give up, because it's never worth giving up before you try something. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I covered everything in this video, and if you have any more questions, just message me, or leave a comment down below, and you can find my contact details in my about section on my channel. I have my email, and I also have my Instagram, which you can DM me on. That's pretty much it. I hope you have a good journey on solving your childhood trauma issues and escaping escapism initially. So thanks for watching, and yeah, like always, peace.